Hey, welcome to Gray Roots. I've got like a whole bunch of people here with me today. Pretty excited to see Carrie, Alicia, and our darling new Lauren Auwood, who has joined us to be the therapist on staff here. So, welcome, ladies.
Hello.
Hello, hello. Hey, good to see you. A holiday number one down, Thanksgiving. Are we full still? It's been a couple
Still
weeks now.
tired. Still tired.
Yeah. Us too. It was a busy November, but here we are in December. And this topic is going to be a sensitive one. I'm not going to lie. It is a hard one. It's hard for me to understand personally. So, Lauren, I'm so glad you're here to help us unpack it. Today, we're going to talk about going no contact and what that looks like. What happens if you've already made that decision, but now Christmas is coming and you're thinking about maybe going the other direction? All the things. So let's start with, why does someone go no contact, Lauren? What makes someone decide, okay, this is time. I'm going no contact?
Yeah, I think in my experience, failed attempts at repair, right? So like putting yourself out there, expressing yourself, hoping to be heard, understood by your in-laws. Many attempts at that is typically what I see happens before deciding to go no contact. And there are ways that a daughter-in-law can be no contact and the husband or the son of the mother-in-law can still have contact. I have a personal friend who lives that way. Her husband still has a relationship with his mother and she supports that. He allows the kids to see the grandmother, and it's because their relationship is so strong and united and there's so much trust that my friend, the daughter-in-law, is totally able to do that. And I know that might be a conversation for a different day, but I don't know if that applies here. So I want to make sure I say like it is very possible to have that happen.
Lauren, I'm glad you brought that up. And I was doing some research on this whole no contact thing about what helps a person get to that, place where they're like, this is the best choice for me. And one of the things I read was just the amount of stress that is caused by that constant bickering, that constant battle, that constant whatever it is that causes that friction in the relationship, that actually takes such a toll on someone mentally, physically, emotionally. And so at
Mhm.
some point you decide that this, what you said, it's been repeated so much that it is better. Truly, I know the phrase protect your peace is kind of thrown out there, but I think it's literally to protect your peace. What would you say on making that decision to go no contact?
Man, it's hard. It's after from where I sit professionally, it's after many trying to shift and look at it from this way and trying to twist and bend and how can I and is there a way to do this and I've tried this and it's impacting my, like you said, my emotional well-being, my ability to show up as the mom that I want to, my ability to take care of myself as a person. So it's never, well, I shouldn't say never. There's never a never, but it's very often not easy. It's not quick. It's not rash. Where I sit
Wow.
professionally, it is a very thoughtful decision that is not wanted ever. No one's ever like, "That's gonna be great.
Mm.
I love that I have to do this." But ultimately it becomes the you gotta save yourself.
Yeah. Girls,
Yeah.
Carrie, Alicia, do you have any friends who've had daughters-in-law go no contact or they've gone no contact? Have you experienced any of this personally?
I personally have not. I don't know anybody who's in this situation.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't either. I do have a girlfriend she prefers very low contact with her mother-in-law, but she has 2 sons, so she also highly encourages her boys to spend time with her mother-in-law and her husband to spend time. But I know Andrew's told Essa, my son's told my daughter-in-law before, like, "I'm sure my mom doesn't mean it like that." But then it's always followed up with, like, "You should talk to her about that." Right? And then we talk to it, so that's like how it comes up and how he knows says that. So I do think there are times when the mother-in-law like does stuff and doesn't really mean it the way that it comes out. But if it consistently is happening and you're having a conversation either your son is having a conversation with her, or the daughter-in-law is trying to have a conversation with her, and it just continues, and there's almost this pathetic response of like, I don't really care. You know what? Stop being a baby. That's my role. That's, all that stuff. So I don't know. That kind of answered your question. I don't really have anybody, but that's the closest thing that I have right now.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, that's I don't I mean, I couldn't think of anyone either who's really done that, but it's amazing how many people I read about. So I'm left to read
Yes.
about this. Lauren, again, you're going to be our one person who has experience with it, working with it, but I'm just amazed at the reels that are made about no contact, even whether it's your mom, your mother-in-law, daughter-in-law. I've seen it from all angles. And so I want to talk about, let's say you're listening to this and your Thanksgiving was a freaking disaster and you're like, I'm over it. I'm done. That was the final straw. I'm headed there. What advice, Lauren, would you give them? What is that first step you take? You've made the decision. Now, how do you communicate that decision to everyone?
That's a conversation to first have with your husband of the impact of what the whole experience has been for sure. Like obviously Thanksgiving included, but I imagine there's an entire I would hope there's an entire background before you're getting to that point.
Mhm.
I mean, honoring that you should have the Christmas that you want. You deserve that too. Everybody should have the Christmas that they want. Nobody is owed anything. Nobody is owed anything.
Agree.
So
Right.
you as a mother, this if this daughter-in-law is getting to a point of I cannot do this on Christmas, you don't have to. You should have the Christmas that you want. The next thing to do is have a conversation with your husband and say, this is how I'm feeling. This is how I've been feeling. I've tried this, we've tried that. I'm at my limit and I can't sacrifice my well-being and what I want and need on a holiday with my children to put myself in a position where I feel completely disrespected, mistreated, whatever happened. I'm uncomfortable. I can't do it. I will not be going to whatever Christmas looks like. We can talk about ways to compromise. So, I feel comfortable and you feel comfortable with however this is going to look, but I will not be engaging in it the way that we have over the years.
Lauren, do you feel like this is more prevalent with families who live close together as opposed to people, kids who are kind of spread out from their parents? Or not really?
Hmm. I've heard
Like
both.
families that like you'd see them all the time,
Don't
right?
see
Like,
each other very often. Yeah.
I've heard both. I've heard people reach their limit after years of schlepping their children to and fro in order to only to be treated like shit upon arrival. Um, their kids turn a certain age and they're like, why have I been doing this for 5 years? I want to wake up in my own house on Christmas. I want to feel good on Christmas. I want to be around people who love me on Christmas. I've heard both. I've heard it from local, it's a constant experience, and I've also heard it
yeah.
from a traveling experience. I have heard a little bit more willingness to want to compromise and quote unquote suck it up if it is a trip situation and you're able to stay in a separate place. I have heard more ability to be like, you know what, this means a lot to my husband or my kids enjoy blah, blah, blah. As long as I have my own space and I know it's this many days and I'm out at this time, I'm able to do it. But that's been my experience of what I've heard.
I read some online advice that it was suggested that when you make this decision, that you write a very basic letter to let the person know. For example, the mother-in-law, just a simple letter stating that you're taking a break from the relationship and that you would not be responding to any calls, emails, whatever, and not to make it anything in depth or any details, but just say for your own emotional well-being, you're gonna be taking a break from this relationship. What do you think about that
Yeah,
approach?
you could absolutely do that. Absolutely. If you want to.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
if
I'm
you
just curious. The message has to get there somehow, so I'm just curious as to what is the healthiest? What is the one where you feel like I always feel like you need some kind of control. I think a lot of the times you feel like you've lost control in those
Mhm.
situations, and so you're taking back your control a little bit by saying, "I'm no longer gonna engage in this relationship," or, "I'm taking a break from this relationship." Not in a harmful way control, but just kind of saying, "Okay, I've allowed this long enough, and I'm not gonna allow it anymore." in a respectful way, I think you can say that. I don't know. I liked the idea. I was just
Yeah.
curious as to what you thought.
I like the idea, but like with everything, there's nuance to it. Do I think somebody who's been incredibly abusive and distressing to your life, do they deserve a nice heads up?
Mm.
Maybe not. Um, it's totally would I advise someone to do that if they've been treated horribly for years and years and years? You should write her a letter and let her know. Probably not. If it's
Yeah,
something
makes
that
sense.
was something of value to the person, like I feel weird just like disappearing, I'd be like, absolutely, how can we do that in a way that feels good for you? Uh,
Mm, I like that.
do you want there to be an option to resume? Do you want to maybe see if there's an ability to repair later on? Then maybe saying, "Hi, I'm taking space for I'm not sure how long. Please don't reach out. I will reach out if and when I'm ready to revisit this." That's always an option too. It could be a very healthy thing, a very healthy approach, and I don't know that it's always going to be applicable or the healthiest thing for the person who's been hurt so much.
Sure, that makes total sense. Yeah.
Yeah, kind
And
of a
I
gray
wanna
thing.
touch on, yeah, what you've said too. When you do make this decision to go no contact or you're helping someone walk through that, do you put a timeline on it? Is it different for everyone? Have you found like a general 6 months, a year, 20 years? I mean, do you have something that you give them?
I don't give anything. I have 6 months seems to be a certain number of time that you start to see or feel a level of healing of like, wow, I didn't realize how much this was affecting me until I've
Oh,
had this amount of space to be away from it, truly disengage and be away from it. And wow, my marriage is healthier. We're not bickering. I feel better, which of course makes it difficult to want to revisit this and repair it,
Yeah.
So 6 months, five to 6 months is a time that I have professionally seen some sort of, what's the word I want? Not recollection. That's not the right word.
Recognition or
Yes,
awareness
yes.
or
Yeah. Like a recognition of, okay, this was right for me, And then I've also to that, I have heard some who are like, I've been thinking maybe I could extends find a way to connect for a Christmas thing. Maybe not on Christmas, but maybe for Christmas in a way that feels comfortable for me. Typically around that time too, but that seems to be enough time to get your bearings, to be able to breathe with some distance and really get an understanding of what you think, feel, and need moving forward.
as you're talking about that and these young girls that are having to do that, I'm just feeling such empathy for them. Like, oh, that's such a stressful situation, you know? Especially when you get out of it, realizing how much of it you're carrying. And it just makes me think of us as mother-in-laws. And if there are any mother-in-laws listening, if your daughter-in-law has been trying to set boundaries or trying to gently say, hey, can you do this or don't do this? If we're just not listening, this is where this is heading. And it's so sad to me. It's just sad when that happens.
Yeah.
So I think, that's why we're here is just to bring awareness into that
Right.
space and go, what are we doing? Can we listen up,
Right.
mother-in-laws? We got to start listening
It is sad because it's like, for what? Like, for what?
to
For
be right.
Right, for you to be right, for you to continue to do what you've done for 25 years, but now someone else is ready to has a family and needs to do something like for what? Truly. I would
yeah.
love to know, like, what is it for?
Well, I
It's a
think again, I mean, I think I could be wrong, but I think in a lot of situations, it's for the identity that they've had since they became a mother. It's what they've
Yeah.
Yeah.
known. It's what they're the proudest of. It's what they're, especially if they didn't take care of themselves and find other ways to get joy
Mhm.
and to get
Yeah.
fulfillment. It is their everything, and
And
so
I've it's so ass backwards because 'cause they're gonna lose it.
Yeah.
You're
well,
lose that
right? I
thing. You're
know,
gonna lose it because
right?
you are not
Mhm.
honoring someone saying, "Hey, I really wanna have you in my life, and this is how you have to do it. This is what makes feels I need this boundary and that." And it's an attempt to keep you in a way, the only way that feels good for them.
Yeah.
And without doing that, you're gonna lose the thing that you quote unquote care about the most.
And earlier you said you were talking about how, and this really stuck out to me, of how the daughter-in-laws, like sometimes as mother-in-laws, we can just think, oh, she's just being a bitch and she just, setting these boundaries. No, no, it's a process. It's a hard, long, hard decision once it does get to that decision to go no contact. Like it's a journey. It's not just a one-time decision that I'm just going to cut her off. And I think that stuck out to me. Like let's remember that they are trying,
I think that's how
I
it's
guess.
presented too. I think if you hear if you're online at all and hear the gibberish, when I
Mhm.
watch a mother-in-law talk about it, she is very much describing it as if, "I mean, I've done everything for her, and then all of a sudden, she just cut me off, and I can no longer
Yeah.
see my grandbaby." And you're
Yeah.
like, "Girlfriend, you have been
Yeah.
blind.
So
You have
it's
been
sort of
blind."
it sounds just like the husband who's like, "Divorce came out of nowhere." Like, "What do you mean it came out of
Right,
nowhere? No, it
Yeah,
didn't.
that makes
No
sense.
way."
right.
And it's so, like, on brand, though. It's so on brand. Of course you didn't see it coming because you probably weren't paying attention to what she was actually saying, needing, or feeling.
Mhm.
You were thinking about how it was affecting you. So I am sure it came out of
Wow.
nowhere to you, but it hasn't been out of nowhere.
Yeah.
There's no way. There's no way.
Yeah, and I just know that I'm those young daughter-in-laws, I have such empathy for them because I just feel like you're trying to take on so much as it is being a new wife, a new mom, if you have a job and working that too. And then you have this person over here just wreaking havoc that is constantly just causing this stress in your life. And so it probably does feel like a big weight just taken off of you when you make that decision to go no contact. I would imagine, not that there's not grief, and I do want us to talk about that.
A lot.
What if you make this decision and then the next week you're like, "Crap, what have I done? I actually miss it. I
Right.
miss being at the family events. I'm sitting here by myself and my husband and kids are over there." How would you help a young mom get through that grief of the loss? Because there's still a loss, even if you make that decision, much like a divorce, there's still a loss. So how would you walk her through that loss?
Mm. To be totally honest, I don't know that they feel the loss because it never really if they got to a point of no contact, it very likely never felt good at all.
Mm.
Like, to be totally honest, right? If you're going no
But
contact,
you don't think there's a loss of missing, like, the family? Like, I would imagine even if I don't feel loss of missing the mother-in-law, I would feel a loss of missing some of the family events.
I
Unless
don't
the family was all kind of lined up with that. I've read
well, and
things about,
typically
like,
it
That
the
may
is.
be.
sister-in-law
When you
lines with the
have yes.
mother-in-law, and
Yes.
there's, like, this
Typically
whole
typically
thing.
you have that. You have the soldiers who fall in line with the mother-in-law. So it's really the thing that I hear the most is concern about their kids' well-being at these events, and I hope they're okay, and I don't like that I'm not there to protect them if they feel uncomfortable by the treatment that exists in that dynamic. That's what I hear more of, and I hear the grief that I do hear is in feeling like they're letting their husband down. That's the grief that
Mm.
I
Mm.
hear about. The guilt and the grief of, I can't do this for my husband anymore. I can't I've talked about this on my
Can't suck
coaching
it
call
up.
today. Can't set myself on fire anymore to keep him warm, all right? Or to keep anybody warm. I cannot do it anymore. That's the grief I hear about. I really never
Mm.
hear, "Oh, I kinda
Okay.
miss it." Because if there was things to miss, that stuff is talked about before the decision comes of no contact. Like,
Gotcha.
what
That makes
what do
yeah.
you
Yeah.
yeah, it's certainly, especially more with my therapy clients than in my coaching, but what do you how do you think it could feel if they're there and you're not there, right? So a lot of that is sort of checked in on before you pull that trigger.
Mhm.
And that's why it's not helpful to send a letter of like, "Hey," unless you don't want them to reach out to you at all, then it could be really healthy to send a letter, not wanting the mother-in-law or the in-laws to reach out.
Yeah.
But if you're just taking space and it's maybe something that the in-law is not gonna really notice either way because they barely noticed
Mm.
your needs, the entire time that they were in contact with you, then it can be okay to just do it yourself and then see how you're feeling and then, show up again, maybe take a separate car, which is things that we've talked about. So you can leave when you're ready, but your family can stay if they're having fun. Um, so that's another component to like how do you communicate the no contact? Is it necessary if you maybe just need like 2 weeks to see what's going on and it's all a part of that process too of deciding if that's helpful or not.
Well, let's talk about, what if someone is thinking about coming back at Christmas? Maybe they took a break for 6 months and this is going to be their first kind of step back into the family. Do you have some recommendations of what that can look like and steps they should take beforehand before just showing up after being absent for some time?
That's tricky. So it's like, is this like Christmas Eve is at the mother-in-law's house type of situation? And how do they go?
Sure.
Is that like an example?
Sure.
I think it,
Yeah, let's do
I,
it.
all
I
right,
want to, Alicia, what do you mean?
let's do it. I was
Go
going to say,
ahead, Alicia.
maybe it's just the season. Maybe it doesn't have to be like Christmas Eve or Christmas Day when like everybody is there. It could be, right? Like, hey, let's see if we can go back type of thing. But I think like just the Christmas season, it could be something very, very light, very small, something that's not in, it's in a neutral location, neutral
Yeah,
space. You don't have any of that, any of the triggering stuff that may have happened before. Maybe it doesn't involve the whole entire family. Those are just my thoughts on the whole thing. I mean, Christmas is a time when I think people get together who haven't seen each other in a long time anyway. Like I have friends that will reach out and like, oh my gosh, let's go get coffee or wine or whatever for, it's a Christmas season. I want to see you. I want to catch up, right? It just kind of seems to happen organically around that time.
that's that. Like a neutral ground is definitely a good idea. I've definitely asked women who I've worked with about that. Like, would you feel more comfortable if it's in a public space so that you can control the environment? It feels a little more controlled. And it's usually a set time. You're not really going to be at a restaurant more than like 2 hours max.
Right.
You have a car that you can leave. You don't have to wait for someone to leave your house. Um, but that's definitely an option. In like bigger situations, I think a lot of times what a daughter-in-law is looking for is just some sort of accountability, acknowledgement, and apology before giving their sacred time to someone that has treated them so poorly. Like, in a lot of ways, I think some people see Christmas, the holiday spirit, as this time of year. And yeah, absolutely. And that's what these young moms are also thinking. Like, this is the most special time of year. I don't want to feel like shit, right? Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't want to touch it. Maybe in January I'll touch it, but I don't want to give it up. I don't
Yeah.
want to sacrifice any of this special time with someone that I don't know or I do know is not open to hearing me, taking accountability, acknowledging if they messed up,
Yeah.
right? So a lot of times it's a shelf it till January situation too.
Yeah. I just wonder also,
And
like, Kathy, you brought that idea up of writing a letter. I wonder if that could be helpful for the daughter-in-law, not necessarily to give a heads up to the mother-in-law of like, hey, we're taking a break, don't contact me, but hey, I feel like I wasn't heard. Here's why we're taking a break. Not that she owes an explanation or anything, but just to feel like she's heard. She can get it on paper like, this is what I've been asking for. This is what's been happening when I asked for
yeah,
that. I've asked
yep,
repeated times. I mean, I wonder if that can potentially be
yeah,
helpful on both sides, right? And maybe the mother-in-law gets that and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she's
yeah,
saying blah, blah, blah. But maybe
yeah.
the mother-in-law looks at it and is like,
Mm.
okay, so she needs a
A
break. So
lot of
then maybe,
times A
I
lot
don't
of
know,
times I
just
have
thoughts.
encouraged that. It's sort of like a paper trail. I have said, put it in writing in a text message, and you know it's there, and you know what you said, and you put it in a group
Yeah.
text to your husband and three of you type of thing, and it's there. A lot of times, the daughters-in-law I work with feel most comfortable communicating written, so to speak, letter way, text messages way,
Testing.
because they know verbally it's going to get twisted or it's going to get repeated to
Mhm.
someone in a twisted way. So a lot of times it is most comfortable via text, but very rarely it's never really like a letter type of situation. It's usually like text.
Texting.
But what's hard about text is it can be misunderstood too though. You don't know someone's tone and you can
Tone.
you can misread it and I just
Yeah.
struggle with that. Like I'm as hard as it is face to face, I feel like that face to face you can't misread the tone. I mean, you can
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can fake a text tone so much easier. So, I don't know. I mean, I get it. I mean, it is more comfortable. Chicken out all the time talking to somebody face to face and throw a text because I think it's
Well, I,
easier. I
I
think
think
it's
it's
the
a difference
easier, but
between in a situation like this, it's a difference between a comfort It's more comfortable and it's safer.
Safe. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Not
Yeah, I
not
get that for sure.
not
Depending on
physically
what that
safer.
relationship is.
Yeah, but it can be safer to be like, okay, emotionally, I am safer putting this in words in a very
Yes. Okay.
neutral, like objectively neutral tone that anyone would read and just, it's very basic,
Yeah.
can feel a lot safer than showing up, being vulnerable because you feel uncomfortable in the presence of someone who is unpredictable, unwilling to um, connect in any meaningful way or any vulnerable way. It just can feel like I don't really give a shit how you take my tone because this feels most safe for
Mhm.
Right.
me. Because I've
Right.
tried to do the
Mhm.
typically it's
Sure.
I've
I get
tried to
that.
do in person.
Right. That's what I'm thinking. Like the in person would be a great thing to have, like before it gets like, I'm thinking like by the time they're
Definitely.
like, no contact, like I'm done,
Yes.
like they're done. It's exactly like you're saying.
Right.
The
Sure.
wife that says, you
Absolutely.
know what? I've told you for 5 years what all my issues are with you. I've asked you to go to therapy and counseling, and now I'm out. And he's like, I'll go to counseling. I'll go to therapy
Yep.
now, right? And he's like,
Yeah.
where did this come from? I don't know what happened out of it, and like for 5 years, I've watched this happen with so many of my friends. And the
Yes.
husbands just seem to be oblivious to all the things,
Yes.
which is
Exactly.
unfortunate that us
Exactly. And that's
mother-in-laws
typically
fall in
like
that
with
same
whenever
bucket.
I work with whatever client I work with, and they're having some sort of relationship issue, whether it's a friendship, a marriage, their mother, mother-in-law, whatever. And if it's like the first rupture or the first of a few small ruptures, it's do you feel safe enough in the relationship or that there's enough of a foundation to talk in person, right? Like,
Mm,
Mhm. Mhm.
is there enough?
I love that.
Yeah.
Is there enough like you guys deposits made like you talk about
Yes.
Mhm.
to to weather the storm of a little difficult of a conversation? Does it feel worth it? Does it feel worth it to sit in that because the relationship is that important to you or you want it to be, etc. So that is definitely something that's explored when you work with me before their choice to go no contact.
I love that. Hey, let's talk about before we finish this episode, just things to look for. Maybe you're considering going back as we've mentioned. What are some signs that that person
Mm.
you've cut off is ready? What are some signs they've done the work that you feel they might be ready to reinitiate this relationship? Are there signs to look for, Lauren?
I would say, have they respected your boundaries? How do you
Mm,
know that they've
yeah.
respected your boundaries since you have initially set the I need space or I'm taking a break? What does it look like that they've respected it? How is your relationship with your partner? Meaning, if you resume contact, do you feel supported by your partner? Do you feel like you have a united front? Do you feel like you have someone on your team for when you resume? And if you resume, that you feel completely safe, like someone has your back the whole time you do it? That's definitely something to consider before re-entering. Like, what do you need in order to do this? Do you need, I mean, I go as far as like like a legit game plan with your partner before you go. This is what
Yes.
I need to check in. I need you to check in with me while we're there and just ask me how I'm doing, even if that's through text,
Mhm.
because you don't know how to do that in a house. You need a time that you're gonna leave so you know there's an exit coming and you know you just have to make it to a certain time. What are you gonna do if a boundary's crossed or something happens? You like, what do you need from your husband? How does he need to support you while you're there? Is that literally not leaving you alone? Because sometimes that's how serious this is. The second a
Mhm.
daughter-in-law is left alone, sometimes certain in-laws will take it upon themselves to show their worst because
Mhm.
the person that they're wanting the good image for, their son is not in the room, and then it becomes their word against her word, and you know all of that. So as far as signs, definitely like, what have you seen that makes you feel ready to resume? How do you
Yes.
know you're ready? And if you haven't seen anything, what do you need before you do it? Because maybe it's nothing from the in law because we can't control them, but you can control what you ask your partner for. Like, I can do this. I'm willing to do this. I know it's important to you, husband, but in order for me to do this, this is what I need from you.
Right. I love that. All right, this is a tough subject. I think what we've established is there's no definite answer. That it's hard to know when it's time to go no contact. It's hard to know what to do while you're going no contact, and even harder maybe to decide that you're going to dip your toe back in it and attempt to reestablish that relationship. Carrie, Alicia, do you have any final questions for Lauren? Thoughts on this topic before we wrap it up?
I don't. I think we kind of hit all over everywhere, and I
Mhm.
love the idea of if you are thinking about going no contact. I mean, it all depends on the situation, but if it's just the mother-in-law, daughter-in-law, and the kids are okay with their relationship with the grandparents, and maybe the husband is, there's a thing there, maybe he wants to see his siblings or whatever. But you can separate and go no contact by yourself. It doesn't have to be like a whole family pull away. Well, you know what? You're not going to see my kids anymore. You treat me like that, and then here you go. Because I do think, well, from anyway, with friends and social media, sometimes it seems like that is what we see, what we
It
hear,
definitely
you
doesn't
know?
have to be, and a lot of times that is the way. There's a level of not caring about the kids. You gotta care about the mom to care about the kids. You have to. So, it's a big ask to ask somebody to let someone who has treated them really horribly to see their children. So, if they don't feel safe, like, I don't feel safe with my dad's wife, I'm not gonna put my kids in front of someone I don't feel safe around,
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
emotionally or otherwise.
Woo.
So, it's very tricky. It's not
And
tricky, but it seems very tricky. So if someone doesn't want their kids around, um, a mother-in-law, or, if it's like, "Oh, I can't even see my grandkids." I mean, of course, there are exceptions where the daughter-in-law has a whole other host of issues that existed before the mother-in-law, of course. So I'm not talking about that. But it is
Right.
worth pause of why, like, what happened that is it feels that unsafe. Yeah, good
I feel
point.
like that is just one last thing. That is a huge point, mother-in-laws, that to what is our relationship with the daughter first? The daughter-in-law first. 'Cause I think we tend to jump. We wanna jump, and we can't
Mm,
jump.
mm,
Jump over them to the grandkids, you mean?
Mhm. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's fair. I would say the same thing, Lauren. If I don't feel safe with you, there's no way I'm putting my kids around you. So if my kids are that important to you, then you need to work at their relationship with me. And that shows me that my kids matter to you if you work on the relationship with me. But if you
mhm.
dismiss me, then you are dismissing my children. I mean, that is just we're the nuclear family. So I'm part of that. So if you're have no regard for me, then how can I trust that you have regard for my children? So
Right,
I
and
agree with that.
that is what the daughter-in-laws feel, who are, like, ultimately, like, "I don't want my kids to see my mother-in-law." That feels really, I imagine for a lot of these women, that feels really gross to be withholding their children because it looks manipulative to anyone
It
who doesn't
does.
know what's really going on.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But how do you put your heart in the way of someone who has been so awful to you? Like, you it's a really hard thing to ask or, expect, I guess.
Can y'all think of a small deposit for this one? I have a small
Okay,
deposit. If
go.
you still have contact with your daughter-in-law, then you treasure that and you put in the effort to make sure that you avoid this, that you recognize now, hey, I've got to turn over the baton as we talked about last week. I've got to give it up. My role is to support her, love her so that that nuclear family. And that's by letting go and being supportive.
Mhm.
Number 2, if you are mother-in-law that's happened, you're in a no contact situation, then you get curious and look in the mirror and be willing to admit, what have I done? What could I have done? How have I contributed to this? Because I guarantee you, I know myself and I know I contribute. I know that I do. And so I
Mhm.
think if
May
we can dare to be vulnerable enough to recognize, oh my gosh, wait, we're not perfect. We could have done something. I think that goes a
Mhm.
long way in any relationship. And I bet these young girls will watch us and
Mhm.
be appreciative of that. Those are my thoughts for small deposits.
Yep.
Any
There you
last
go.
words, final words, Lauren? We'll leave it to you before we go.
I co-sign your small deposits, Kathy, completely. If the
Awesome.
end game is wanting to have a close relationship with your son and your son's children and your grandchildren, you have to ask yourself, what is it all? What's worth not doing that?
Yes.
Why? And what is that for?
Yeah, I agree. All right. Thanks so much for listening, you guys. This has been a tough one. We invite you to find Lauren Allwood. She is Lauren A. Therapist on Instagram. Go follow her. She offers so much great advice. She has coaching classes, all the things. Also, follow us, Grey Roots Podcast. Subscribe to us and share us with a friend. Thanks so much. We hope you're enjoying this holiday season. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.